Mm.
All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the HSP Summit. And today we've got our guest, Denise Morrison. And Denise will be talking about reconnect with your inner voice and create your plan to self-growth. Is that the plan?
That's the plan. Yes.
All right. Awesome. Well, I thought if you wanted to start out, I'd love to hear your HSP origin story. And so if you can share with us a little bit about when and how did you find out you were a highly sensitive person, and how has that discovery impacted your life and relationships? I'd love to hear that story.
Well, intuitively, I always knew I was highly sensitive and extremely introverted. And I don't think we had labels back then, back in the day. And I knew it, but I actually didn't find out until I met Jen Corcoran and started hanging out on LinkedIn more and reading her posts. And then the beautiful algorithm led me to you and Tammy. And I thought, wait a minute, these people are starting to sound, they're saying stuff like I've been feeling for 50 years. So it took me till 50 years old to realize that this is a thing. Like, I mean, I'm embarrassed to say, but it is what it is. But thanks to you and your post, and I took the test from Dr. Elaine Aaron, and ding, 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 I scored a 25.
Oh, wow.
But I mean, yeah, like I kind of always knew it, but I rejected it completely. And
Okay.
having shown up in LinkedIn, the space in our world, and I've gone, oh, okay, I'm not alone. I'm not a freak. This is actually a good thing, and it's not a bad label. Like I had all these,
Mhm.
thoughts and feelings about it inside myself that I had just rejected and pushed away. So yes, I'm a late bloomer.
No, it's awesome that you've come to where you have. And I think you're absolutely right. Something you touched on there is there are so many misconceptions, and there's so much of a stigma that can surround the phrase highly sensitive person. And so
Mm,
I know for me as well, there were the couple of times I'd heard the phrase before I took the self-test and really dove down that rabbit hole to learn what it meant. It just didn't feel quite right. What I was hearing when I heard about that phrase didn't quite resonate. And then there were, just like you said, a few distinctive voices that spoke up about it where it did start to resonate. And I thought, okay, maybe there's more to this than what I've heard. And
mhm.
maybe the stigma that was attached to it isn't accurate, and those people weren't the right people to be listening to. And so yeah, I think when we find those voices and we really learn what it means, just like you were talking about, and an expression that somebody used in one of the other sessions was this idea of coming home to myself, is the phrase that they used. And I love that expression because it feels so accurate. It really is, oh, I can be so much more comfortable in my own skin because now that I know what this means,
Yeah.
what it really means, yeah, that's me. And so it's just exciting when you check off those boxes, and suddenly
Mm.
it's like, oh, like you said, exactly, I'm not a freak, I'm not broken, I'm not weird, I'm not strange. I am wonderfully different. I have
Yeah.
this trait that makes me unique,
Yeah.
but it's not wrong, it's not bad, it's not something that needs to be fixed. It's actually just something wonderful that's built into me, that as I explore it and as I come home to myself, I
Mhm.
can live in light of this. And it
Mm.
really does start to transform our lives because we're living in alignment with how we were created. So that's awesome.
Oh,
I appreciate you sharing that part of your story.
I just feel like you just like continued to soothe my whole being with those words, because it's like you see me, you hear me, you get me, you know this. And yeah, I feel like I'm finally wearing the right shoes and outfit.
That's awesome. I love that. Yeah, it is just, it's wonderful. And especially just being a part of this community of,
Mm,
the people who are involved with this, the summit, but also just meeting other people on social media and connecting with those communities. It
yeah.
really is this sense of finding our people and feeling at home.
Mm.
And I've loved every minute of the journey since then. But I appreciate you sharing how you became aware of it and how you started that journey of understanding and awakening as well. That's awesome.
I would have not thought LinkedIn was the place that I was going to discover these deeper, powerful skills and traits that I have, because I had no idea. So I thank Jen Corcoran for bringing me over because we met in a women's networking group.
Okay.
And I was just so impressed by her and what she did. So I was like, I'm coming over. And then I saw her post. I'm like, wow, you're me.
Yeah, no, Jen is fantastic, and I think, like you said, when we're involved in the world of personal development and coaching, and we feel like we've gained a pretty decent level of self awareness, but then suddenly you click this piece into place, and it
Yeah.
makes sense of all the other pieces, and it just starts to ripple back outward in this whole new level of self awareness and self understanding. It's a wild ride, but it just makes sense of so many other things. And Elaine Aron talks about that a little bit in her book, this idea of looking back in our lives and in our stories and putting the pieces together in light of this discovery. And I think for all of us that are here in the summit, that's what's happened. And that's why we've come to where we have in our journey, is because we've been able to do that work looking back as
Yep.
well as being able to plan our lives looking forward.
Oh yeah. As soon as you said the looking back, like I could still feel like we're the origination of that rejection from
Mm,
being so sensitive. Don't take
yeah.
everything personally. You better toughen up, Denise. And I see that little me that cried and cried for being sensitive, and which I shut down. Like I was like,
Mhm.
okay, that's a bad word, obviously, because the adults that were saying that to me had bad faces and emotions. So that significantly imprinted me and programmed me to think sensitive was bad. So
Yeah.
like, coming into this age at 50 going, nope, it's not. Nanny, nanny, poo poo relatives. There's my
Yeah.
child coming out.
No, I agree. It's a way of reclaiming a piece of our heart that often was wounded along the way in our childhoods and in our journeys. And
Oh,
especially
yeah.
for a lot of highly sensitive men, it's that same thing on steroids where it's like any sort of sensitivity, any sort of emotional reaction is frowned upon, and you're just told, no, put that part of yourself away.
Huh?
Nobody wants to see that, nobody wants to hear that. And it's awful to do that to that childlike part of our hearts. But
Yeah.
then I think that's another part of the reason why the journey to reclaim that part of ourselves is so powerful, and
Hmm.
why with so many of us we find this whole new element and aspect of courage and purpose in our lives, because we have that back and we want everyone to have that,
Oh my
who's
gosh.
felt that way.
I mean, I have some people that follow me on other platforms, and I tell them, like, I'm an empowerment expert. And they're like, what is that? I'm like, I believe in you. I see the best in you. Let me help you get it out. And a lot of times they're like, what is she talking about? I'm like, trust me, where I've been and what I've overcome, I am qualified to do that for you. And it's like, once I share my story, they realize, oh, it's our stories are just so powerful.
Absolutely. That's awesome. So on that same note, I'd love it if you would share with us a little bit more about what do you do, who do you help, and how do you help them?
Well, I am a holistic transformational health and life coach, which basically means I have used a combination of my 30 years in healthcare, practicing as a physical therapist, yogi, NLP trained coach, health and life coach. So I kind of have my own toolbox that I work with
Mhm.
women over 40 who are highly functioning professionals and also highly sensitive. And they are sick of putting everybody else first and sick of hiding and feeling bad about themselves. And the holistic health coaching part comes in because I address, like, how is their health, how's their fitness, how's their nutrition, how's their sleep. So I go into all the deeper aspects of it.
Wow.
And just this, like, toolbox that I have to help women, like, once I hear them, see them, and we have our Zoom sessions, I can really pick apart
Mhm.
how they've been putting others first, or sabotaging themselves or burning themselves out because somewhere along the line they too subdued themselves or changed themselves because of some other occurrence,
Mhm.
person, event, whatever. And I just beam when I can help them shed the clouds that are bothering them. I always say cut the crap out of their life. So yeah, and there are other women like me. They're, business owners, healthcare providers, educators that they're like, why am I suffering? Oh, so many things. So that's what I do. I do one-on-one coaching. I'm very passionate about like deep transformational one-on-one. I've got you, Voxer email sessions, and because I know there's so much involved to the human being than just, this level stuff. We go deep.
Awesome. I love that. Thank you for going into detail there. And yeah, you do have a whole arsenal of skills there to use to help people, and that's great. And as well, on top of that, just as you were talking, I thought especially with the power of your intuition, to guide you in that process and help you bring out things that others might overlook. I think that's
Mm,
also an essential element to know where to go deeper, or where they might not even be aware that they're saying something, but there's something underneath it that you can pick up on and go deeper with them, and
mm,
creating that environment where you're just, balancing that compassion and candor, and really being willing to go in and like, let's push this a little bit, because I feel like you're onto something, but you don't want to really go there, or you don't want to acknowledge it. Like, let's see where we can go with this. And
mhm,
so, and knowing your level of compassion just from our conversations, I can tell that you'd be the perfect person to go there with them and walk
mm.
with them through that process. Because so often in coaching, I think we discover as much about ourselves as we do the problems that we're trying to solve. And it's like, so there's that increased self-understanding and self-discovery that comes with it.
Yeah.
And it's essential in those moments that we have that compassionate guide to go with us into that, so we don't feel alone and we don't get overwhelmed and start backing up or retreating from the progress that we're making. And so
Oh,
I
I'm
love
sure.
that you're a guide to go there with people in that.
Well, I sought it out, and I had my guide, my secret weapon, early on in life, and so she stayed with me, and it was as if my coach, my guide, was like raising me, and
Okay.
I mean rewiring me, reprogramming me, reinvigorating me, and re-empowering me from that age, because it was very cloudy. I was very depressed. I was very anxious and I would hide because I didn't want to be sticking out as a highly
Mhm.
sensitive child, person, anything. And so that's what I love to help my clients with, is that I'm right there with them, because the bumps and the rocky roads are going to come up, and they
Yeah.
need that to know that they don't have to go backwards and fall behind to the old ways. There's new ways, new possibilities. So
Yeah.
yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. Okay, so today I know we're going into, how to reconnect with your inner voice and create your plan for self-growth. So to start that out, I'd love to know a little bit more. Why is it important for women to reconnect with their inner voice? Why is that so essential?
Well, it's essential for two reasons. For me personally, as a woman who has witnessed in my household these stifling of mother, sister, myself, and how it affected us physically, mentally, and emotionally and spiritually. And so there's a deep passion for other women to go, no, this doesn't have to be stifled. You do not have to be stifled. And there's trauma and abuse in my past, so I get very passionate about that. But
Mhm.
in working solely with women, this has been a theme for many of them who have gone into healthcare, gone into businesses, gone into education as a way to compensate for pieces missing, looking for other things, looking for voids to fill, approval, external validation. And along the way, their voices were stifled, and they relied on other people, or believed in other people's voices and put their voices ahead, or didn't feel like they could speak up at all for one reason or another. Much the way I was raised, I was never allowed to speak up. My voice didn't matter. And same for my mom and my sister. So that's my sensitive super story that I don't share very often, but
Mhm.
I value it so much because I saw how it affected my health and my mom and my sister being stifled. It affects your biology, as we all know now, is your your biology is affected by your mindset, your thought, your self-talk, your thoughts. So when my clients, these beautiful women, can start to tune into their powerful intuition, their body's wisdom, like, I have an ache, I have a pain, I'm so tired,
Mhm.
that's like excellent information to help them. And if they've been ignoring it so many years, usually they come to me and their hormones are out of whack. They're not sleeping, they're not eating. And so that mismatch, that disconnect, I help them reconnect and realign with, you're in there. You're actually the expert of yourself. You know yourself better than anybody else, no matter who's told you what all those years. So
Mhm.
it's a big process to get back to that point, but much like I would tell a little child, what you're saying inside of there, what you're feeling inside of there matters. So a lot of these women, even though they're over 40, they might not know that she's in there,
Mhm.
and it's exciting when they find her.
Yeah,
So,
that's
yeah.
awesome. I love how you articulated that, and I love the work that you're doing, because there are so many people who need that help to reconnect, and just sometimes even just the permission, someone to help give themselves permission to do that work and to figure out, okay, why does everything feel off, and why does it feel like no matter how much I achieve and no matter how hard I work, it's
Mm,
still not adding up. It's still not, I still don't feel whole. I still
yeah.
don't feel complete. And the health struggles are getting more and more severe no matter how much I try and achieve and be everything for everyone. And so it's awesome that you can slow them down enough to start to really look at those puzzle pieces.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. As you were speaking that, like I was guilty of this as well. Like I sought out doctors and therapists and professionals and tried all the diets and exercise because I was attempting to fix
Mhm.
myself. I was attempting to be somebody who I didn't like being because of my sensitivity, my introversion, my caring ways. And
Yeah.
I mean, I spent thousands of dollars on fixing myself. And I'm like, wait a minute, I wasn't broken. Like
Mhm.
that whole we're broken is icky with me. So I
Yeah.
remind my clients that you're actually beautiful as you are. You have all the resources you need within you. Maybe you just haven't tapped into them or they're hidden somewhere. And let's talk to her and figure out what you do know. Because everybody's gotten too much advice. Like, what's she saying? So I get very passionate about that.
Yeah. That's awesome though. It's a great approach, and obviously it's working well with your clients, and so that's all of that is awesome to hear.
Oh,
And I'm
there's
sure a
lots
lot
of
of people who are
tears.
listening right now, it's striking a chord as well, because I think each of us, we know that there's truth to what you're saying, but more than just intellectually acknowledging
Mhm,
it, I think we can each feel in our heart the truth of
mhm.
what you're sharing and how you're describing that. And so I love that you're there to guide people through that process in the holistic way that you do with all the different skill sets that you have. That's great.
Well, the body keeps the score and the body
Mhm.
speaks volumes. And I mean, once my gals feel comfortable enough to tune in and trust their wisdom, they'll often say, wow, that knee pain or that shoulder pain was as a result of some other thing than I thought.
Mhm.
It wasn't an orthopedic concern or it wasn't an exercise concern. It was a deeper root cause. And it just, it's
Yeah.
mind blowing.
Awesome. So when you're doing that work with people and helping them dive deep inside and listen to that inner voice, how does that end up helping empower them to create a plan for self-growth?
Oh, it's so great. Well, the fact that they feel their power when they uh, get to know, love, and trust themselves inside
Mhm.
and count on their inner wisdom, their inner expert, and that voice, giving them permission to go, you actually can create your days based on what's important to you, what you feel that you need. Um, a lot of times I'm redirecting clients to stop consulting YouTube, Google,
Mhm.
whoever, and go, okay, take that in. What's inside saying, and what would be ideal for you and your lifestyle, your physical being, your health at this stage of your life, and let's create a day of this kind of self-care, this kind of like self-empowerment journey, meditation, yoga, screaming, journaling, whatever it may be,
Mhm.
because a lot of the women that I've worked with have put the belief that everybody else knows what's right. And they try these things and they don't fit. So I help them to go, you know what, let's create daily self-care routines, which a lot of women still aren't doing. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy, but I know I was there too. Like, we don't get taught this in school. No one gets
Hmm.
taught self-care. I mean, maybe they do. So I help them to realize that they can give themselves permission to put themselves first and say, oh, I'm going to spend some time with my, yoga mat in the morning, or my book or a journal, before I go to be with the kids or the whoever, or go to my job, so that they're connecting with their inner wisdom first, and setting their power, their energy up for the day with more intention. And so their days feel more aligned and balanced, as opposed to just dropping out into the day and just letting the day take them away. And
Hmm.
then part of that is, like, a lot of the women get off track, but setting these foundations where they're listening in and they're choosing what's important to them: health, fitness, sleep, love, care, whatever it is, all aspects of their life. And then they can go, you know what? I can create a plan just for me that's helping me grow, and look outside the box of, what am I just doing at work, or what am I just doing in my community? Hey, I need to go on walks, or I need to do
Hmm.
journaling, or I need to, go to a club and dance, or whatever it is that they want to do. And it's just giving them that permission that, we as coaches know, and we know it's helpful, but a lot of the women I work with, they're just doing the day-to-day things and getting through the days. And then at the end of the day, they're burnt out and gone, wait a minute. Oh yeah, I never took a nap, or I never meditated,
Yeah.
or, oh, that's for everybody else. So lots of things that I've heard, like I said, giving them permission to say, you know what, you're allowed to read books on the weekend, or you're allowed to take time off on the weekends.
Hmm.
And so they can feel their inner being is growing, not just, I've made it this far in my business, or I've raised this much money, or got these many, toys in my house and my car.
Hmm.
So, that's all well and good, but it's the deep stuff.
Yeah. Well, something you mentioned there, I'd love to revisit a little bit and go a little bit
Sure.
deeper on. You talked about the idea that many of us end up with this voice in our head that tells us other people know me better than I know myself. And I was curious, where, based on the work you've done with your clients and then with yourself, in your own journey, where do you feel like that comes from? How do we end up with that voice in our heads?
Oh boy. Well, me personally, I'll just use me because I'm right here. So since at such a young age, I kind of hid, turned off, went within myself, because I didn't want to stand out as this sensitive being, crying and caring for everybody else, and saying the amazing things that I used to say. Like, I just went inside myself, because the voices that I heard from significant relatives, significant caregivers,
Hmm.
groups that I belong to, the things that kids say to you when you're growing up,
Yeah.
things that you'd hear on television. So all of that old programming, that imprinting, for whatever reason or another, our precious brains and bodies have changes, that all of a sudden now we have these, like, thinking programs, or self-talk programs, or
Hmm.
daily behaviors where we're like, I'm not good enough. I shouldn't stand up and speak up. I shouldn't ask for what I want. They come first. So
Okay.
for me, it was, the father figure, another figure in my life, and very strong, emotional, scary people that I went, nope. And so that completely affected my mind and body. And so when I'm working with my clients, I listen in to what they're saying about themselves, their past, how they came to where they are today. And their language is a great indicator of what they've experienced, and their nonverbals are speaking volumes about what they've experienced, what they've had
Hmm.
to hide, um, just different patterns in their bodies and how they show up. So that's what I sense. So when I speak to, new clients, or friends or family, whatever, I have them also, if they're interested and willing to do the investigation, is, What are you saying to yourself on a regular basis? What are you thinking about yourself? Where did that come from? Are they even your words or your thoughts? And
Yeah.
a lot of times, we have all this stuff in our heads, like from when we're, pre-verbal days, even
Mhm.
before we're 7 years old, that I need to look a certain way, or I need to be a certain weight, or I have to have a certain job, we carry that with us in our neurology. And a lot of times, like we were speaking before, we're acting out of automatic patterns that are sabotaging ourselves,
Yeah.
or affecting our health. And I mean, I could go on and on.
No, I appreciate you diving deeper into that. And I guess so the next question in my mind is for those of us, excuse me, who have been raised to feel like it's selfish to take care of ourselves, but we're hearing now from people like you that there is a level of healthy self-interest that actually is much better, and in paying attention to ourselves in that way and having that healthy self-interest, we're not being selfish, we're just learning how to do proper self-care so we can show up at our best for the people in our lives. What do you feel like are maybe a few small steps that we can leave the listeners with to get them started on that journey towards healthy self-interest, and maybe silencing some of those voices?
So as you just said, I hear a lot from clients, it's selfish. And then they usually say to me, you know, I'm not being humble, I'm being obnoxious, or self-centered. And so those are the older stories or phrases or beliefs that they're carrying around. And as I tell my clients, at your age, you're a grown up now, you actually get to change that story. You get to, I'm going to date myself, you get to break that record, throw that cassette away, and make a new uh, belief, a statement, an affirmation, mind body statement, and move to change that. And, but picking up that first gut, like body, like, nope, I can't be selfish. So if you can catch that, fantastic. And
Mhm.
then, because a lot of times, I've felt this way, my clients have felt this way. Once we kind of reprogram and uncross those wires in their mind and body, they realize that it's not helpful to carry that around with them. It's not helpful on a day-to-day basis because their health is failing, or something's going amiss in their whole life.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh my gosh, yeah. And empowering people to go, you know what, I do have the brain capacity, I have the cognitive skills now to state, no, I'm going to do things differently. And it opens up so much choice and power. And they go, you know what? Gosh darn it, I need to take a nap every day at 3:30 so that I
Mhm.
can function for the rest of the evening. My body is calling out for water, for exercise, for dancing, for a trip. And you're in your own house. This is your
Mhm.
own house to take care of. And if you're not taking care of it, relying on everybody else is going to upset you and set you up for failure and disappointment and frustration. I mean, yes, they're good out there too in healthcare in the world, but
Mhm.
you're your best expert knowing. So why not know yourself? Like, yeah, I mean, if I would probably have to do research and ask you and many other people, like, was there a generic generational, like, nope, you cannot be selfish, you cannot take care of your body. And it blows my mind, because
Mhm.
if you're not taking care of your body and you wind up with a disease or some sort of illness, they won't know you if you don't know you. And I'm speaking from years in healthcare. If
Yeah.
you're not a great advocate in knowing your body, they're only going to get the report that you give them. And they might, I'm talking about professionals or doctors, whoever, they might
Mhm.
put onto you some diagnosis you don't even have, because you haven't known yourself long enough. Because
Okay.
like, well, I can't have protein, or I don't do well with like broccoli or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Like silly things like that. But does
Mhm.
that answer your question?
It does, yeah. And so I guess where I'd love to wrap up is, based on the work that you've done in yourself and the work you're doing with your clients, when they've taken the time to
Mm.
break those records and toss the cassettes and make these changes and start implementing these practices that you've shared with us, what are some of the results that you're seeing and that they're seeing? What is the positive ripple effect that comes out of that process?
Uh, their whole being beams. First, usually there's lots of tears of relief, joy, coming home to themselves, a greater sense of power and choice and awareness of the choice. And just watching the women that I've worked with, like leaving jobs, changing careers, changing relationships, opening up an animal sanctuary, like one of my favorite clients did. She's like, I'm quitting my job and I'm opening an animal sanctuary. And
Oh, wow.
just the possibilities when you can declutter your whole being, like
Mhm.
the how comes, the inspiration comes, the insights come, and oh, like you breathe better, you feel better in your own skin, you stop doing what they told you to do and you do what feels comfortable for you. So, I mean, you're seeing it in action because I've overcome this and I've done this in my journey with my coaches. So, yeah, like I'm sweating, just excited, feeling about it, talking about it.
That's awesome. I love that.
Oh my
Okay,
gosh.
well, for everyone who's super psyched up now and wants to learn more about how they can work with you and follow along more with the work that you're doing, what's the best place? I know we'll have some notes in the show notes underneath or in the on this page on the summit page, but where would you love people to come and connect with you and follow along even more with what you're doing?
Well, they can find me on LinkedIn where the rest of us are hanging out. I'm also on Facebook, same name, but my website is deniselynmorrison.com, and you can see all about me there. I have some opt-in choices that if you want to learn more about your mindset or rewriting your body story, but I'm pretty cool and casual. You can send me an email or drop me a DM. It's quite all right.
Okay, awesome. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, and I hope everybody will get connected with you, especially on LinkedIn. But wherever they normally hang out on social media is great as well. I've loved this conversation. I've loved our journey together, and
Mm.
look forward to hearing more about the work you're doing in the future and following along with your journey. And really just appreciate your time and your insight, and appreciate you joining us for this event. And I hope everybody else will take the time to connect with you as well, because you are the bright light that you were talking about, but you don't keep it to yourself. You're so generous and compassionate, and you share that energy everywhere you go and everything you do. And I want to, just take a moment to thank you for that, and thank you again for your time and for coming on with us today.
Yes, thank you so much for inviting me and being part of my community out there.
You're welcome. So, all right, well, we'll let everyone go on to the next session. We appreciate you being here for the summit and especially for this session, and we'll catch up soon. Thanks
Okay,
again.
bye.
Bye bye.